So recently, I was watching some YouTube videos about a game called Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. I actually really enjoyed this game and other Spyro games too. But it seems like most YouTubers I watched who were talking about this game had several reasons in common for disliking the game or even hating the game. They said the game was clunkier than other Spyro games, had more glitches compared to the other Spyro games, and the frames per second was worse than the other Spyro games, and it had less levels than the other Spyro games, and etc. On and on and on. These YouTubers did say they enjoyed playing the game. It just seemed that the only reason they didn't like it was because they were comparing it to the other Spyro games in the series. Now, let me say I do think that context matters to a degree, but I think it also matters to judge something for what it actually is, probably even first. Welcome to Toon Fever, baby. You see, recently I was watching a YouTube compilation of pop songs from the 2000s, and a Maroon 5 song came on, and one of my friends started singing along to it, and I said, "What? You like Maroon 5?" And they said, "Oh, is that what it is? Ew, no." I was pretty blown away. Like, I don't understand how a person can rationalize that within their own intellectual framework. Truth just fell apart. So it might be the most postmodern or woke thing I've ever heard. I'm just kidding. I think I would just consider that probably a failure to separate the art from the artist in that case. But now let's go back to Spyro. That is probably a failure to separate the art from other art made by someone else, mixed in with some fair criticism as well. Now, usually, this isn't considered much of a problem as much as separating the art from the artist is. Now, let's talk about The Needle Drop. Anthony Fantano, the internet's busiest music nerd. Awesome channel. I really like how he scores albums, giving them the scores that best represent his enjoyment of them, rather than his relative enjoyment of them compared to other stuff. Or at least that's what's usually the idea behind his scores. Though I do disagree with the vast majority of his reviews, I really enjoy the content he puts together, and I find my interest in music stimulated by his reviews. And I don't think I'm the only one who disagrees with everything he says. I think that's most music fans who know how to use the internet. Now back to Spyro again. All these guys making YouTube videos are basically right in saying that Spyro Enter the Dragonfly was inferior to other Spyro games in many ways. Okay, sure, so I'll grant that. Now, yesterday, I also watched about 3 hours of very interesting YouTube documentaries about how the game was extremely rushed, and about 80% of the work they did on the game was cut by the developer. Okay, sure. But then there's me. I put the game in and play it and have a good time. And none of that stuff matters, although all of it directly affects the gameplay experience. I simply experience it for what it is, and I happen to really enjoy it. Now, is it as good as some other Spyro games? I don't know, but is that even an interesting question? I guess it is if you're like shopping for a Spyro game or trying to recommend one to someone who's never played one or ranking the series just for fun, and probably various other reasons too. But essentially, I'm saying that it makes more sense to me to appreciate something for what it is rather than who made it, what else it's attached to, because developing an opinion on art shouldn't be about anything other than what it is. All the other stuff is just also interesting. So, look at this. Do you like it? I personally don't, although I do like that color. So what's it worth to me? Probably about the cost of the canvas, and maybe about 50 cents more because they went ahead and toned the canvas for me. Then you'll discover it's by Mark Rothko, and it's worth this amount of money. Interesting, but now let's look at this one. Quite a bit more colorful. I would say it's more interesting, but still looks kind of like a mess to me. The art world might say something like, it's very Jackson Pollock-esque, free-spirited and flowing. The eye races about the canvas, marveling each detail. It sweeps you off on a journey, introducing a brave new world, an inspired cosmology of nebulous figures, a relevant postmodern disassembly of space-time, and then you blink for the first time. So, ew. Now let's think of what the art world might say about the other one. Maybe they would say something like, I just love the richness and the juxtaposition of the different tones. It's so deeply emotive in the most distant, esoteric sense, like a bellowing echo that drifts away as a storm begins to brew. It grips the soul with simultaneous fright and uncanny, a torrential downpour of darkness expressed in the absolute coziest manner. So those are two different art reviews of people who probably take themselves way too seriously. Two artworks that probably also take themselves way too seriously, I would guess. Well, actually, I'm just kidding, because this one's actually just a close-up of a painter's apron. And I guess that pretty much sums up my point. So me and my friend, we have this running joke where we'll send each other a picture of something and then we'll ask a question, is it art? So here are several photos of an example of this. I took these at my local art gallery and I went out of my way to look extra touristy in some of these selfies because I thought it would be funny. So they had several installations and I was really glad that they were allowing pictures that day. And now I should probably mention that these are actually not from an art gallery, but actually they're from my local YMCA pool area. But, you know, is it art? So let me just say I'm not bitter. I actually rather enjoy plenty of contemporary art, especially just the idea that art no longer has any boundaries. And I've made some of my own. And I'm currently working on another contemporary painting, but for now I'm just in the sketching phase. But I will say that if a person likes this, I understand their point of provenance that they're coming from. I just really don't put any stock into their opinion, I don't think. This is absolutely allowed to exist and be worth this much, just as I am allowed to think it's lame and weird. Just as I'm allowed to say that Spyro Enter the Dragonfly is a good game to me, just like Anthony Fantano is allowed to like one of the most disgusting human atrocities ever committed, which kind of makes me genuinely concerned for the safety of all the other citizens in Connecticut. In summary, I think context is important, but I think that opinions of art should be based on simply what it is. Can context ever truly be avoided? Not likely, but I do think it's a cool idea to consider, at least initially, dismissing it when it comes to art. And at the base level, context will always be there, as it's true that a person's entire life helps to define their taste in music. And many times, it's fun to challenge that as well, and listen to things outside of your comfort zone, as many music fans do and enjoy. And while context can be such a great tool, it can create massive blind spots as well. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you want me to do more opinion style videos about music, because I like doing stuff like this. I thought it was really fun. See you in the next video.